chapter 5, section 5. As a reminder, we're finishing up chapter 5, but you want to remember that Rome became the largest and most powerful empire in the world up to this point. All right, so section 5 is called the Decline and Fall. Obviously, all good things must come to an end, and the beginning of the decline was the end of the good emperors Marcus Aurelius when he died in 180 AD, and it brought the end to the Pax Romana, and he had his son Commodus rule, and Commodus was not a good leader. So that was kind of the beginning of the end. So after this point, there was a lot of political unrest, and there were a series of emperors in the Severan family called the Severan rulers, specifically started by Septimius Severus, who he and his sons were rulers, and they kind of ruled by the philosophy of pay the soldiers and ignore all others. In other words, their opinion was that in order to maintain this empire and for them to remain in power, you needed to have a good, strong military and disregard the citizens, and any other people other than the military. So over the next 50 years, there were 22 different emperors, and most of those different emperors were assassinated. So it was very violent, and it was very chaotic in Roman times. They were also troubled by invasions by different groups of people, specifically the Persians from the east and the Germanic tribes from the north. You can see those invasions on page 176. You can see that there are the Angles and the Saxons, that there were the Franks, the Huns, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and the Visigoths. And all of those were different groups of people that started knocking at the door of the Roman Empire. Besides the fact that they could not keep an emperor, they had some basic economic and military problems as well. Because of invasions, civil wars, and a plague that nearly caused the collapse of the Roman Empire, all of those are definitely connected to economy and to the military. There was a decline in trade and small industry because they were dealing more with protecting and defending rather than the peaceful time of the Pax Romana where trade and industry increased. There was fewer people to work because of this plague, and a plague is a widespread disease, and 1/10 of the population of Rome was killed during this plague. There was also a decline in farm production, and that was due to because many of the farmers had to leave their land and go fight and defend Rome, and a lot of their farmland then was destroyed during these civil wars and other invasions. The value of the money of the Roman Empire decreased, so that obviously affects the economy. And there were fewer and fewer soldiers. There were fewer soldiers because, of course, they were dying for fighting. They also were dying because of the plague, and just fewer people that were willing to defend something they didn't believe in. So, in order to maintain their military, the Romans had to hire Germans to fight. Now, the problem with this is that they were definitely not loyal to the good of Rome. They didn't understand what Rome was about and the values. They were doing it just because they got paid to do so. So there was a couple people that really tried to change what was going on in the later part of the Roman Empire to try to stop the collapse of Rome. Their reforms were effective in the way of slowing the decline and the collapse, but it definitely didn't stop it. So Diocletian and Constantine, which were emperors that we mentioned that were part of the spread of Christianity from section 4, created new government structure, and they believed that if they had a strict system, an economic, social system that was very rigid, it would kind of stop the slow leak, if you will. And of course, Constantine being the first Christian emperor, they knew that maybe this new religion could also help it. So Diocletian ruled from 284 to 305 AD, and he divided it into 4 units, and each unit actually had a ruler. Constantine came after him in 306 and 337 AD was when he finished ruling. Both of them strengthened the government and enlarged the government, if you will. The army was also enlarged to 500,000, and they needed more money for that, but there were fewer taxpayers because of unemployment. Farmers were away fighting and didn't have any money, and of course the plague, which killed a tenth of the population, which could have been taxpayers. So to fight inflation, or this rapid increase in prices and the declining value of their money, they established new economic policies. Diocletian and Constantine both set wage controls, price controls, so that was pretty rigid. They also made sure that people were staying in their current jobs, and jobs were passed on from family members to family members, so that they made sure that all jobs were being done. And by 324 AD, Constantine became the sole ruler of the empire, although there were 4 leaders that were created by Diocletian. Eventually they knew that the 4-leader thing wasn't going to work, and so Constantine became the emperor of the empire. At this point, he moved the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to Constantinople. And obviously Constantinople is a city named after Constantine. And this city no longer exists by the name of Constantinople. It's now called as Istanbul, Turkey. And it was on the Greek city of the Byzantium, and it was in the eastern portion of the Roman Empire. Constantinople then became what they call the New Rome, and it was the center of the Roman Empire, but more specifically of the eastern part of the Roman Empire. So, looking at our map, let's go through a review as we are finishing this chapter. You, of course, need to know where the peninsula of Italy is, the city of Rome in the center of Italy, the Tiber River that runs through Rome, the Mediterranean Sea, which was instrumental in the growth and expansion of the Roman Empire, Carthage, of course, fought in the Punic Wars, and that was acquiring Africa for the Roman Empire, all of the northern part of Africa. The Alps protected Italy from the north, and it really helped them expand because of that protection. They acquired Sicily from Carthage as their first province. They acquired Spain. They acquired Macedonia and Greece. They acquired the first Asian province of Pergamum. They acquired present-day France, or then known as Gaul. They acquired Romania today, but it was called Dacia then. Eventually they expanded into Britain, and then they added the area of the Sinai Peninsula, and of course then Jerusalem was included, and that is where the Jewish revolt occurred in 66 AD. So now you need to label Constantinople, and that is this city right here, the dot that is right there. It's on the European continent, but it's very close to Asia, in Asia Minor. And we'll be labeling a couple other places for the end of the unit. All right, so the fall of the Roman Empire. It was really divided into 2 parts. The Western Roman Empire, and Rome remained the capital there. But they kept being invaded by these Germanic tribes in northern Europe. The Eastern Roman Empire, remember, its new capital was Constantinople, and it really wasn't being attacked or invaded nearly as much as the western portion. So a group of people known by the name of the Huns. The Huns were a nomadic group of people from Mongolia, and they were threatening the Germanic Visigoths, or the West Goths, in their territory north of Rome and Roman Empire. And so they were pushing them further south into the Roman territory, and the Germanic Goths decided that they might want to become allies with the Romans, and hey, why don't you let us into the empire so you can protect us, and we'll definitely return the favor. However, this only lasted for a short while, because in 378 AD, these Germanic Visigoths revolted at the Battle of Adrianople, and that, of course, was detrimental to the Romans because they defeated them, and it was because they were already inside the empire, if you will. Later on, another group of Visigoths attacked Rome in 410 AD. And then the Vandals, another group, also raided and looted Rome. And this is, of course, where we get the word vandal or vandalism. In 476 AD, Romulus Augustulus was the last Roman emperor of the Western Empire. And he was removed and replaced by Odoacer, who was the head of the army for the Germanic tribes. And he became the new leader of the Western Empire, and this is signified with being the end of the Western Empire, or the fall of the Western Empire, and also constituted the beginning of the Middle Ages. The Western Roman Empire then was replaced by these Germanic kingdoms, and the Eastern Empire, though, really kind of remained safe for about another 1,000 years, but it was not called the Eastern Roman Empire. It was called the Byzantine Empire, which then was instrumental in establishing later kingdoms like the ones in Russia. Now, there are lots of theories about the fall of the Roman Empire exactly. Some say that it was because of lead poisoning through their water pipes, and of course this caused a mental decline. The plague, of course, wiped out 1/10 of the population, so that was the biggest reason. They refused to advance their technology, and they relied way too much on slavery, or Rome was unable to put together a workable new political system in changing it or evolving it. And so this are all the different theories of the fall of the Roman Empire. But in my opinion, there are lots of reasons for the fall of the Roman Empire, and they were all mentioned in this section. So some causes are: they had internal problems, civil war, 22 different emperors in 50 years. People lost confidence in Rome. They didn't think they were able to protect. Their economy was going down. They didn't know who the leader was going to be. There was, of course, declining cities and farms. The farms were obvious because the farmers were leaving and going to fight. And the cities, the wealthy were leaving the cities because they didn't feel protected, and they left, and they would leave the city and go to their own private latifundias where they were walled in and felt more protected. There was a smaller population because of fighting, because of plague. All of those things declined the number of the people. They had weakened defenses because of a smaller army, and more people were attacking. Their economy was stagnant or not improving. They were lacking in trade. Their small businesses declined. The value of their money went down. Really, Diocletian and Constantine are almost considered to be causes to the fall as well, because they didn't do anything to really stop the fall, so they're considered to be causes. They divided the empire, so maybe that wasn't a good idea. They had this oppressive government, which people, of course, did not like. They were attacked by different groups, like the Huns and the Vandals in particular, the Visigoths. And the final straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was when Odoacer, the Germanic king, was the first king of Italy that was not a Roman citizen. All right, so we have all of these places that we've just labeled, so make sure that you have all of these that we just labeled a few minutes ago. And there's Constantinople. We need to mark the Western Empire, which is the white section. The gray section is the Eastern Empire, and we need to label the Battle of Adrianople, which was near Constantinople, which of course was where the Visigoths defeated the Romans and really kind of brought the end of the Roman military. All right, on our comparison chart, Greece's military, very strong army, but later they created a navy, and Rome did the very same thing. The decline, really the Peloponnesian War or a civil war brought down the empire of Greece. For Rome, it was lack of leadership or poor leadership. And as far as reviewing, an epidemic disease is a plague. Constantine's capital is Constantinople. Official declaration is an edict, like the Edict of Milan. The rapid increase in prices is inflation, and the people that sacked Rome in 455 are the Vandals. Diocletian and Constantine did all of the following except allow wages and prices to rise. 7. The Western Roman Empire was besieged by all except Carthaginians. Theories about why Roman Empire declined include D, a tidal wave, it didn't. Last good emperor Marcus Aurelius died in 180, and that brought conflict and confusion.